Welcome to our UK album review, where we're detailing the albums and artists that reached #1 in the UK during 1974. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified of new content. Thanks. Before we get started, here's a quick mention of the 9 albums that just missed out and peaked at #2 on the chart. As usual, keep a lookout for a separate video on this channel that gives a run-through of the near misses. Now, let's get started. First up for 1974, it's Tales from Topographic Oceans, the 6th studio album from Yes. Tales from Topographic Oceans was Yes's 6th entry on the UK album chart, after their success with 4 previous studio albums and their live album Yes Songs. It was also the first of their 2 #1 albums. The album contained 4 tracks, each of which was between 18.5 and 21.5 minutes long. Tales from Topographic Oceans entered the chart at number 10 on the 16th of December, and it reached #1 on the 30th of December, and it stayed there for 2 weeks. The band next entered the album chart in December 1974 with their next studio album, Relayer, which peaked at number 4. They then reached number 27 with the compilation Yesterdays in 1975. Slade were next to the #1 spot with their compilation, Sladist. This was the group's 3rd album to chart in the UK, and it was the 2nd of their 3 #1 albums. Sladist contained 14 tracks, including the #1 singles "'Cause I Love You", "Take Me Back Home", "Come On Feel the Noise", and "Squeeze Me Please Me".
Put me down, now I love you.
Sladist first charted on the 30th of September 1973 at #1, and it stayed at the top of the charts for 3 weeks. It returned to the top of the chart for a further week on the 13th of January 1974. Slade next hit #1 on the album chart with Old New Borrowed and Blue in February 1974. We'll hear more about that in a short while. Perry Como replaced Slade at the top spot with "And I Love You So", which was issued on the back of his hit single of the same name. The album was Perry Como's 5th album to chart in the UK, with his first charting album being back in 1958. It contains 10 tracks, including cover versions of Don McLean's title track, Chris Christopherson's For the Good Times, Bread's Aubrey, and Killing Me Softly with Her Song, a slightly renamed version of the Roberta Flack song.
And you love me too, for the good times, and Aubrey was her name, killing me softly with her song, killing me softly.
The album first charted on the 1st of July 1973 at number 3, and it reached #1 on the 20th of January 1974. It stayed at the top of the chart for a single week, and it spent a total of 107 weeks on the chart. Perry Como also registered on the UK album chart in August 1974 with his follow-up studio album, Perry, peaking at number 26. He next reached #1 with his 40 greatest hits in late 1975. After Perry Como, it was the Carpenters with their compilation, The Singles 1969 to 1973. Richard Carpenter avoided using the term greatest hits in the title, as he felt it was an overused thing. This was the Carpenters' 6th album to chart in the UK and the first of their 3 #1s. It contains 12 tracks, including the UK hit singles We've Only Just Begun, Top of the World, Yesterday Once More, and They Long to Be Close to You.
And yes, we've just begun.
I'm on the top of the world looking down on Crete. It's yesterday once more. They long to be close to you.
The compilation first entered the chart at number 20 on the 20th of January, and it reached #1 the following week. It spent 17 of the next 23 weeks at the top, and a total of 37 weeks on the chart. The Carpenters next hit the album chart with their next studio album, Horizon, in 1975, which also reached number 1. Their third and final number 1 album was the compilation Only Yesterday in 1990. Slade temporarily replaced the Carpenters at number 1 with Old New Borrowed and Blue, their fourth studio album. This gave Slade their fourth UK charting album and their third number 1 in a row, following the success of Sladist, which returned to number 1 earlier in the year, and Slade, which reached the top of the chart in January 1973. Old New Borrowed and Blue contains 12 tracks, including the UK top 5 singles My Friend Stan and Every Day. It also contains the non-UK single, When the Lights Are Out.
My friend Stan's got a funny old man, oh yeah. Every day when I'm away and then when the lights are out, when I hear you sound.
The album entered the chart at number 2 on the 17th of February, and it reached the top of the chart the following week, staying there for a single week. It spent 6 weeks on the chart in total. Slade's next album to chart was their first soundtrack and their fifth studio album, Slade in Flame, which charted in December 1974, peaking at number 6. Their follow-up studio album, Nobody's Fools, peaked at 14 in 1976. The Carpenters reclaimed the number 1 spot from Slade for a further 11 weeks, after which it was Rick Wakeman with his live adaptation of Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth, recorded at the Royal Festival Hall in January 1974. This was Wakeman's second UK album chart entry as a solo artist, after his 1973 success with The Six Wives of Henry VIII. Each side of the vinyl album contains 2 pieces of music. Side 1 features The Journey and Recollections, and Side 2 contains The Battle and The Forest. Journey to the Center of the Earth entered the chart at number 14 on the 12th of May, and it reached number 1 the following week. It spent a single week at the top and 20 weeks on the chart in total. Rick Wakeman next charted with The Myths and Legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table in April 1975, peaking at number 2. After that, he reached number 9 with No Earthly Connection in 1976. After Rick Wakeman, the Carpenters reclaimed the top spot for a week. Then it was the turn of David Bowie with Diamond Dogs. This gave Bowie his 7th UK charting album and the 3rd of his 11 number 1s, following his success with Aladdin Sane and Pin-Ups in 1973. The album contains 11 tracks, including the UK hit singles Rebel Rebel and Diamond Dogs. It also contains the non-UK single 1984. Diamond Dogs entered the chart at number 1 on the 2nd of June, and it stayed there for 4 weeks. It spent a total of 42 weeks on the chart. David Bowie entered the album chart again in 1974 with David Live, which peaked at number 2 in November. His next studio album, Young Americans, reached number 2 in April 1975. The Carpenters once again reclaimed the top spot for a week, after which it was Elton John with Caribou, his 8th studio album. Caribou was Elton John's 8th UK charting album, and his 3rd number 1 in a row, after Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player, and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, both in 1973. Among the 10 tracks on the album are the UK singles The Bitch Is Back, which peaked at number 15, and Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, which reached number 16. Caribou entered the chart at number 1 on the 7th of July, and it stayed there for 2 weeks. The album spent 18 weeks on the chart in total. Elton John next charted in late 1974 with his greatest hits. We'll hear more about that in a while. Up next, it was Paul McCartney and Wings with Band on the Run, the group's third studio album, and Paul McCartney's fifth album since leaving the Beatles. Band on the Run was Wings' third UK charting album, following Wings' Wildlife and Red Rose Speedway, and it was the first of the band's two UK chart toppers. The original UK album release contained 9 tracks, and it included the top 10 singles, Jet and Band on the Run. It also contained the non-UK single, Mrs. Vanderbilt. Band on the Run entered the chart on the 9th of December 1973 at number 45, and it reached number 1 on the 21st of July 1974, where it stayed for 7 weeks. The album spent 124 weeks on the chart in total. Wings' next studio album, 1975's Venus and Mars, also topped the chart. They then reached number 2 with Wings at the Speed of Sound the following year. Next to number 1 was Mike Oldfield, with his second studio album, and the follow-up to Tubular Bells, Hurgist Ridge. This was Oldfield's second album to register on the UK album chart, and his first to reach number 1. Hurgist Ridge was divided into 2 musical movements. Part 1 took up side 1 of the album, and was 21.5 minutes long. Part 2 was on side 2 of the album, and was just under 19 minutes long. The album first entered the chart at number 1 on the 8th of September, and it stayed there for 3 weeks. It spent a total of 17 weeks on the chart. After Hurgist Ridge dropped from the number 1 spot, Mike Oldfield replaced himself at the top of the chart. We'll hear about that in a few seconds. Mike Oldfield's debut studio album, Tubular Bells, which was released in 1973, and was his first album to chart, capitalized on the popularity of Hurgist Ridge, and replaced it at the number 1 spot. As with Hurgist Ridge, the album is divided into 2 music movements. Part 1 lasts over 25 minutes, and Part 2 is over 23 minutes long. Tubular Bells first charted on the 7th of July 1973, and it rose to the number 1 spot on the 29th of September 1974, where it stayed for a single week. Over the years, it has spent 288 weeks on the chart. Following his success with Tubular Bells and Hurgist Ridge, Mike Oldfield next charted with Orchestral Tubular Bells, peaking at number 17 in 1975. He then reached number 4 with Ommadawn later the same year. Following Mike Oldfield, it was the Bay City Rollers with their debut album, and their first entry on the UK album chart, Rollin'. This album contained 14 tracks, including the UK top 10 singles, Remember Sha-La-La-La, Shang-a-Lang, and Summer Love Sensation, and the non-charting single Saturday Night. Rollin' entered the chart at number 1 on the 6th of October, and it spent 4 of the next 6 weeks at the top spot. The album has spent a total of 62 weeks on the chart. The Bay City Rollers again topped the chart in May 1975 with their second studio album, Once Upon a Star. Their third studio album, Wouldn't You Like It, entered the chart in December 1975, later peaking at number 3. Rod Stewart temporarily replaced the Bay City Rollers at number 1 with Smiler, his 5th studio album. This was Stewart's 6th UK charting album, and his 4th number 1, following his success with Every Picture Tells a Story, Never a Dull Moment, and Sing It Again, Rod. The album contains 12 tracks, and it features the UK single Farewell, as well as the American single Mine for Me.
Well, my brother, please don't stand in my... Be another one like mine for me.
Smiler charted at number 1 on the 20th of October, and it spent 2 of the next 3 weeks at the top of the chart. It spent a total of 20 weeks on the chart. Rod Stewart's run of UK #1 albums continued with his next two releases. Atlantic Crossing topped the chart in 1975, and A Night on the Town headed to #1 in 1976. After the Bay City Rollers and Rod Stewart had shared 6 weeks at the top spot, Elton John's Greatest Hits, his first compilation, became the final #1 of 1974. Greatest Hits was Elton John's 9th UK charting album, and his 4th #1 in a row following Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and Caribou. The compilation contains 10 tracks and includes the UK top 5 hits, Your Song, Daniel, Rocketman, and Crocodile Rock.
Everybody, this is your song. Oh, I miss Daniel. I'm a rocket man, rocket man. I ever got is gonna think of a crocodile rock.
Greatest Hits first charted at #1 on the 17th of November, and it stayed at the top for 11 weeks. To date, the album has spent a total of 84 weeks on the chart. Elton John charted with 2 albums in 1975. Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy peaked at #2 in June, before Rock of the Westies reached #5 in November. And that's our review of the UK's #1 albums of 1974. We hope you enjoyed it, and please come back for the next countdown. Thanks for watching.